Over more than 10 years of playing fantasy football and winning more than 3 dozen championships during that time, I have always found that picking in this pick range of 4 through 6, I've actually always really liked. Don't particularly love the 6 spot, but I do really love the 4 and 5 spot here. So this draft strategy we're going through today is going to be the best draft strategy for picks 4, 5, and 6 in 2024 fantasy football. And of course, I'm giving away free FFN hats for anybody who goes down there, drops a like on the video, is subscribed to the channel, and gives me their hottest take for 2024 fantasy football. So please go down there and drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me what your hottest take is for 2024 fantasy football. So I think the first thing that we need to go through, because I'm going to go through both ESPN and underdog strategies today, is to differentiate what the differences are between regular ESPN redraft leagues that you get in with your buddies from college or maybe just a family league and what an underdog best ball draft is. So when we're looking at the ESPN regular format, we're typically looking at 2 wide receiver, 2 running back, 1 flex, 1 quarterback, 1 tight end, 1 kicker in a defense type of format. So that automatically means that there really isn't a difference in value between wide receivers and running backs that is going to slant the way that your draft is going to go and who's going to be drafting who. And typically what we see from over the years is that running backs are usually more valued to everybody who drafts on ESPN. So running backs do kind of go a little bit earlier, but it's really not that skewed. Whereas you go to underdog, there is a 3 wide receiver format. And that's the big difference there on underdog best ball drafts is since you have 3 wide receivers providing you points every single week, whether you like it or not, that inevitably raises the value of wide receivers to a massive point, and it really slants how fast wide receivers go in best ball drafts compared to regular ESPN redraft leagues. And this is highlighted. You can see this on the screen right now. When you go to ESPN, there's currently 9 wide receivers on ESPN that are going in the first 24 picks. There's also 10 running backs going in the first 24 picks on ESPN. Now, when you look over at underdog, there are 17 wide receivers going in the first 24 picks on underdog and only 7 running backs. That's almost a 2-to-1 difference of wide receivers going on underdog versus going on ESPN. So obviously that changes the draft strategy for many, many people when we're talking about going into an underdog draft versus going into a regular ESPN redraft league. Underdog is just simply different in that way. So let's go ahead and just get right into round 1 on ESPN. Let's start out with ESPN. Look at the targets that are in that range. And I'm going to tell you guys my favorite to least favorite in that particular order of the guys I like in this range. So from picks 4 to 6 on ESPN, I like all the guys. You can't really go wrong. Bijan Robinson is still my favorite though. Bijan Robinson, as of the time you're watching this, maybe we have more news, but the last news that we got is that the Falcons offensive coordinator recently came out and said he might be sharing the backfield a little bit more this year. Not ideal if we're trying to get Bijan Robinson as a league-winning type of running back at the beginning of the first round. I'm going to take the head coach's word over the offensive coordinators because the head coach has consistently said this offseason, Bijan Robinson is the centerpiece of this offense. So I'm just going to take Raheem Morris's word, the rookie head coach, over the rookie coordinator, Zach Robinson's word. That's just what I believe. I think that's more just coach speak to keep Tyler Allgeier's spirits up and maybe just kind of draw a little bit of a smokescreen in the month of August. But it's no slight to Breece Hall. I still think Breece Hall easily could be a number 1 running back in fantasy football. I just think that he has more disadvantages just because of the Jets offensive team and just their team culture as well. And then with Jamar Chase, I think Jamar Chase is also, like I said, a great fit here in this pick range too. I think Jamar Chase really does have a chance to be the wide receiver 1 in fantasy. I think if things go wrong with Tyreek and wrong with CeeDee Lamb, he's my next choice to be the wide receiver 1. I think all he needs is Joe Burrow to stay healthy and for himself to stay healthy for an entire season. Jamar Chase has an elite ceiling that we've seen his rookie year, and it's kind of not been the same since his rookie year. I think this is the year that things change because he is on a contract year, by the way. So I'm a big fan of Jamar Chase in this range. And like I said, all the guys in this range on ESPN definitely like drafting first. I just prefer going running back in round 1 as opposed to going with the wide receiver here. Now we're looking over at underdog here. You got all wide receivers in this range. Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Justin Jefferson. And again, I like all of them. I really don't think you could go wrong with any of them. Ja'Marr Chase, for the reasons I just explained, is my favorite in a best ball league, especially when we're talking about best ball. When we're trying to get the most boom games out of somebody, I just think that Ja'Marr Chase just has more potential to get boom games just based on the quarterback that he has above both those guys and really the big playability that we've seen from Ja'Marr throughout his entire career. With Amon-Ra St. Brown, I really think that he could definitely lead the league in targets. Like, we have no question in our minds that he's the number one wide receiver there. It's really all about, can he really hit on the big plays this year and kind of separate himself? The reason I have him over Justin Jefferson is just because of quarterback uncertainty right now. I think that Justin Jefferson's floor is a little bit lower than Amon-Ra's. While I think his ceiling is higher, I just think his floor is a little bit lower right now. And I don't think his ceiling is that much higher than Amon-Ra's this year to where I can really justify clearly picking Justin Jefferson over Amon-Ra St. Brown in an underdog league, which is why I do prefer Amon-Ra. But again, we're splitting hairs here with these guys. I think they're both great picks in an underdog fantasy football draft. Now let's look at round 2. And I do this in every draft strategy video. What we need to take into account when we're discussing draft strategies and targets that we should be getting round by round is make sure we take into account the human element that inevitably happens in every draft. Someone in front of you, more than one person in front of you, will reach and grab somebody behind your pick range, leaving somebody above your pick range to fall to you. So that always happens in every single draft. So we're going 2 more spots outside of the 19 to 21 range, which is where your pick slots will be, but we're including 17 and 18 in ADP as well. And when we're looking at all those guys, the thing is, if you have the opportunity to pick Pacheco or ETN, that's the move that I would make. Now, I'm not particularly wild about the double hero running back strategy. I do think it's effective more so in an ESPN redraft league, but I just really don't love the receivers in this range. Pacheco, I know that we can feel confident in him because of the offense that he's on, and we know that he's the lead back in Kansas City. ETN, I feel pretty good about, but not quite as good about picking him in the second round. I really don't think his ceiling is ultra high this year. They've talked consistently about lowering his touches, giving more to Tank Bigsby. So I've already kind of made my point on ETN very clear in several videos this offseason. Don't love him as much as I did last year. But again, I would take him over the receivers here because I'm just not wild about them. Olave and Devontae Adams, I definitely like Olave more than Adams. Olave is definitely going to be cut out for plenty of if he doesn't get 140 targets this year, I'll be shocked. I'll be really shocked. They made no additions to this wide receiver room. This whole offense is entirely stale. And we also know in Alvin Kamara's older age, Olave is definitely the best weapon that they have at this point in New Orleans. So they can't afford not to target him a bunch of times, which is exactly why when I look at his line on Underdog, his line right now is currently higher or lower than 1,075.5 receiving yards. That really is a smash over for me because we know the targets will be there. So we know just based on last year, him getting over 1,100 yards, he's going to surpass that in all likelihood. So this just seems really low to me. So I'm hitting the over on this. And if you want to get in on it as well, when you go to Underdog, using the link in the comments below and signing up with Underdog using code FFN, when you deposit $10, they will throw free freaking money at you to the tune of $250 in extra bonus cash. So you can make this Olave pick on top of a couple others or get in an Underdog draft as well. So join Underdog today using code FFN. Now, Devontae Adams, like I said, I just really am not a fan this year. We're coming up on a bad age for Devontae Adams this year. The quarterback really stinks. And I just do think that this is like really the prime year that a player like him, as great as he has been, is just going to take a downturn in fantasy. So I've really explained this one a lot too. I'm not wild on Devontae, and I'm not wild on Travis Kelce for a second year straight. Second round is still a very high price point for me. He's still the tight end 1, and I just do not think that him in the second round is going to be worth it because there's going to be a lot of games where I believe he'll disappear, much like he did in 2023, with some occasional boom games. In the second round, I don't think that's what you should be going for here. So I'm just not wild on Devontae or Travis Kelce. Now, when we look over at Underdog here, Deebo Samuel is my clear favorite, and I'll tell you why. Deebo Samuel is the perfect pick for an Underdog league. I wouldn't prefer him as much if he was going in the second round of an ESPN draft. In fact, I really wouldn't prefer him at all. The reason why I like him in an underdog style draft is because we already know the nature of Deebo Samuel as a fantasy football player. He's totally boomer bust. Super low floor to the tune of like a wide receiver 3 and a super high ceiling to the tune of a top 3 wide receiver. So that outlook there with the big boom potential in the second round, it's just too great for me to pass up on in an underdog draft, especially when we know that Brandon Ayuk very well could be traded by the time you're watching this video. So I think Deebo Samuel, as of right now, this is why I would say get on underdog, take advantage of this price, because this price actually might go up here soon. And Saquon Barkley, I've been consistently against this offseason. His price has dropped to a point where I'm okay with taking him at the back of the second round. I'm more okay with taking him at the back of the second than I am at the front of the second round. Saquon Barkley definitely is not worth a high second round pick to me, let alone a first round pick for me. But at this range, I definitely see the upside just with the offense as a whole, the offensive line, and I do think that he's a worthy pick in the back of the second round. Olave and Jalen Waddle, similar player profiles in a way for me, where it's like Olave I know is going to get the targets, and Waddle is going to have the big plays. So I could take either one of them, and again, I would just stay away from Adams in this range. Moving on to round 3. We're looking at Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts as our 2 quarterbacks to get here. Your pick range is 28 through 30. And again, these are both guys who are just slightly outside the pick range, but we take into account that human element. Maybe one of them, if not both of them, falls to you. And I think this is the perfect place to start picking a quarterback. These are your top 2 quarterbacks essentially in fantasy football. I know Mahomes is ranked a little bit more in an ESPN draft, but these are essentially, you're going to be your top 2 quarterbacks because of the rushing upside they provide. So in the 3rd round range, this is just a prime opportunity in an ESPN league to go out and get your quarterback to really separate yourself from a guy who drafts Jared Goff in the later rounds. I think this is where you separate yourself by taking a quarterback early. And I think I prefer Josh Allen just a little bit over Hurts, but they're really, really close for me. You can't go wrong with either one. And then with Devon Achane and James Cook, I love both those guys too. If by chance you want to take a quarterback next round, and we'll get into the next round here in a minute, maybe you want to take a next round quarterback, Devon Achane, James Cook, both really good running back picks in the 3rd round. Devon Achane, big boom play upside, and I think will have a relatively stable floor with some down games for sure because of the backfield split that's going to happen in Miami. But I do think that ultimately, when you really add up the season together, he'll probably be averaging around 15 to 16 fantasy points. And James Cook, I think just in that Buffalo offense, going to be really elite this year, going to be a focal point in this Joe Brady-led offense by the Buffalo Bills. We saw what he did with Joe Brady at the end of last year. We know that he will continue to do that with a full season now of Joe Brady. And then Mike Evans, I'm okay with. Not my favorite for sure. I love this round, really, in an ESPN draft in this range. Mike Evans, I'm fine with, but I would not say is definitely my preferred pick just because of age and uncertainty now that Dave Canales is not returning as that offensive coordinator. How well does he mess with Baker again? That's my concern there. And then I'm looking over at underdog here. Derrick Henry, Kyron Williams, I think are both great running back picks in the 3rd round. If you want to go running back in the 3rd round, be my guest. These are great picks to have because I think Derrick Henry could easily lead the league in receiving, in rushing touchdowns, and I think Kyron Williams could easily go past this ADP just based on what he did last year. Cooper Kupp, very slowly rising on, to be honest with you guys, because of the Puka Nacua injury and just because of reports that he's fully healthy and looks like the offense runs through him. Maybe it's a smokescreen, I don't know, but I am kind of in on taking Cooper Kupp in this 3rd round range right here. And then DK and Malik, more so on the bad side for me. I don't prefer them for sure. I think Malik Neighbors is going to have ceiling issues because of the bad offense in New York. And I think DK is going to get touches taken away from him because of Jackson Smith-Njigba. But I think that DK I would prefer over Malik because I know he has big play upside. Whereas Malik, I know he does as a college player and as a prospect, but I don't know how limited he will be in that Giants offense, which scares me off a little bit. And then heading into round 4, this is what I was talking about. If you want to wait and not get a quarterback in the 3rd round, CJ Stroud is a very good compilation prize in the 4th round. back of the 4th round right here, taking CJ Stroud. If you want to take Achane, if you want to take Cook, great consolation prize right here. I think CJ Stroud easily has top 3 quarterback potential. Going to have weapons galore. Offensive line's improving. Team is improving in general. So CJ Stroud, wait around until round 4. Get your quarterback here. It's a little bit of a gamble because he's a little outside the pick range, but a great pick nonetheless. Debo again, 4th round. I like the price based on the reasons I outlined earlier. And then Devonta Smith, I think as well, has a lot of really just a safe floor when we're talking about getting a bust-proof player at the wide receiver position here. And I just like him better than Kenneth Walker, who is going to share the backfield with Zach Charbonnet and with Brandon Ayuk, who is totally in flux at the time of this filming. Again, he may have been moved by the time you're watching this, but the places that are being mentioned right now, Pittsburgh, New England, and Cleveland, all of those places lower his ceiling in my opinion. So it just really doesn't make me want to take Ayuk very much. But again, I just think he's a great player. So wherever he does go, he'll have upside. It will just be limited if he goes to one of those 3 places. Now, moving over to underdog. Again, great range to pick a quarterback in. Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, take either one of them. I prefer Jalen Hurts because of that rushing upside. But again, if Hurts isn't there, Mahomes is great. I picked Mahomes a ton already in underdog. Will continue to do it because I know he's got top 1 quarterback upside. But definitely going to be a great range to pick quarterbacks here. And if you don't get a quarterback here, totally fine as well. T. Higgins, Travis Etienne, Amari Cooper, I think they're all fine picks. Not my favorite, but I will say that T. Higgins is the preferred one for me just because of the volatility and the boom upside that's in Cincinnati's offense. So let me know what you think of the strategy in the comments below. And if you're picking from range 7 through 9, click on this video right here to see the best draft strategy for that range.